Public school funding was one of the flashpoints in the debate over property taxes in Florida. It took a full regular session and a week-long special session for feuding lawmakers to close a $1 billion gap on what to fund for the new fiscal year that starts on July the 1st. Now that it's done, there is a record $30 billion for public schools, grades K through 12. There are raises for teachers with a minimum of 10 years experience in the Florida public school system, $79 million to assist districts with declining enrollment and facing solvency issues, and billions preserved for the controversial school vouchers. I'd like to start with you, Mike. How do you feel about the property taxes, preserving the school-related taxes?
I was very much relieved when in fact, I spoke to a couple of legislators that represent Pasco County. I was very concerned about the reduction the schools would take throughout the state if they were not exempt. And thankfully, some common sense finally prevailed in Tallahassee, and both the House and the Senate agreed that you can't hit the schools. And so they're going to be able to continue getting the dollars they are from local dollars, that is. Tallahassee's a different story. You know, I will tell you, there was an article in the Tampa Bay Times. Pasco County is seeing a huge reduction in school enrollment. They see students that are no longer going to be there over the next few years. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing that in Pinellas County. Pinellas County is closing down schools because of the reduction of students that are in public schools. We're seeing a lot more students either being homeschooled or going into charter schools or going into private schools. And
many critics of the school vouchers say that is one of the reasons why the schools their budgets are being eroded. Frederick, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. How does this funding help or hurt public schools? Is it enough?
So no, it's not enough because we have historically underfunded our public schools. And so on top of students leaving our public school system, we have teachers that are leaving our public school systems. They're leaving our public school system simply because they are 41st in the nation in teacher pay. They cannot pay their bills. There is an absolute affordability crisis for our teachers and our educational support professionals, those hardworking secretaries and those security monitors and counselors. So those are the things that are driving people out of our schools. But our young people are, like one of our guests said, going to homeschool, parochial school, and charter schools. And we have zero problem with any of that, except for those institutions cannot scale up in the way that public schools are. And so when we continue to defund our public school system, which 90% of the students in the state of Florida and across this country attend, then we're going to be facing a massive problem in the short term and the long term in terms of sustaining our schools, keeping them open, keeping teachers here, and what we all care about, student achievement.
In your role now at the American Federation of Teachers, have you found examples of school districts in the rest of the country that have implemented school vouchers and have some success stories to talk about?
Well, not in a scalable way. So there are places that do fine in education. There are places who do great and they receive these scholarships or voucher systems, but they cannot scale up and they cannot scale out. And when you have a government that continues to defund the public school system, you have the haves and have-nots. You form this tiered system of education where some people will get a better education based on where they live or based on their socioeconomic background or their parents, a station in life. And that's not fair. Public education takes them all. We take them with their challenges. We take them from every zip code and we teach them all. And so, and our lawmakers know that it takes money to educate our kids. That's why they continue to do the voucher program. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's just a corporate way of putting a price tag on education. And some people are going to be able to afford it and some people can't. And that's not fair to all Floridians.
Bob, is this something that should the property taxes really preserving the school-related portion of the taxes? Mm-hmm. Many voters will look at that and feel relief for public schools. Is that accurate? Should they feel that schools are protected, or is there still some danger because these things do they are connected. They are linked. The services that are paid for with taxes
I think
and schools.
you can have some sense of relief in that some portion of the funding for public schools will be preserved, as Mike spoke to. But we also have to remember that there's also a state portion of the funding formula that comes back to our local public schools, and there's already projections. We have the sense, because we've been doing so well, that somehow we're recession-proof, or that we're always going to have good times. And those of us that are natives have been around when we haven't had good times in the state of Florida. So there's a lot of unknowns, and there are projections that there will be deficits in the state budgets over the coming years. And we should keep that in mind, as healthy as our budgets may be. So that portion may not be guaranteed for the future. And I will tell you that there also are certain things that are funded outside of the public school direct budget that are funded by communities, and by counties and cities. So, if you're in South County and you're growing like crazy, and you have a school budgeted, or at least on the books to build, well, you don't just build it in all by itself. You have to have roads to get to it. You have to have stoplights. You have to have infrastructure. And if the money's not there to do the infrastructure, then going forward, then that's going to affect the schools as well. So there's a lot of indirect costs that prop up our public school system that are really not being considered.